I was deep in slumber, lost in the realm of dreams, when Toby, my dog, jolted me awake. I tried brushing him off initially. My eyes felt heavy, and a glance at my alarm clock confirmed it was a mere 3 a.m. No one should be up at this hour, yet Toby's urgency was undeniable. His barking wasn't just attention-seeking. He paced between me and the door, urging me to follow. Reluctantly, I rose, hoping to silence him and quickly return to my sleep. But as I made my way out, I nearly stumbled over one of his toys. Regaining my balance, a distant noise caught my attention. The soft sound slowly intensified, resembling distressed gasps. A cold wave of fear washed over me. The only other person home was my younger sister, Eleanor. Our parents were out attending a conference and had repeatedly reminded me to ensure the house was securely locked. Panic surged. Had I neglected a door? Was an intruder inside? Visions of Eleanor in danger clouded my thoughts. My mind screamed at me to retreat to the safety of my room and bolt the door, yet an overpowering instinct propelled me down the corridor. Without fully comprehending my actions, I was soon hammering away at the bathroom door. It was securely locked, and with every pounding, Eleanor's distressing noises ceased. The only sounds that persisted were Toby's alarmed barks and the whisper of the wind against the trees outside. An ominous feeling took hold, akin to that uneasy anticipation when one senses impending doom. "Eleanor, let me in. Are you all right? If someone's in there with you, I swear, I'll call the cops immediately," I shouted, desperation seeping into every word. My heart raced, waiting for a response, praying I wouldn't hear another voice from inside. "Claire, please. I'm okay, just feeling unwell. Go back to bed." Eleanor's voice came, but it was followed by a sob so raw, so piercing, it felt as if it could shatter the very air. I couldn't simply abandon her. If there was a threat inside, I had to protect her. My protective instinct for my younger sister kicked in. Gathering momentum, I charged at the door, attempting to force it open with my hip. It held fast. The house's doors might have been old, but they were sturdy. However, determination coursed through me, and with a final shove, the door gave way. I tumbled in, hands first, cushioning my fall. The scene in front of me was both shocking and unexpected. It was just Eleanor, alone, her features flushed with strain. As my gaze settled, I noticed a pronounced swell in her midsection. My jaw dropped as realization hit me. Eleanor was not just pregnant, but actively in labor. "Eleanor? What? How?" I stammered, my voice a mixture of confusion and concern. She responded only with an agonizing scream, signaling the impending arrival of her child. The gravity of the situation dawned upon me, and I moved closer, extending my hand to offer whatever support I could. She clung to the bathtub's edge, each contraction seeming more intense than the last. I felt hopelessly out of my depth. My knowledge about childbirth was limited to what I'd seen in films. How had this happened? And more surprisingly, when did Eleanor even get a boyfriend? We had always kept our personal lives separate, maintaining a distance that kept such secrets hidden. However, things hadn't always been so distant between us. As children, Eleanor and I shared an unbreakable bond. She was the darling sister I'd always wished for. With our parents' constant work commitments, we became each other's pillar of support. Unknowingly, I'd adopted a maternal role, braiding her hair or assisting with her school assignments. Both our parents were prominent lawyers, engrossed in their careers, leaving us to our own devices most of the time. As young children, their absence hardly mattered. Having each other was enough. But by the time I reached 10, my perspective shifted. Suddenly, Eleanor, 2 years my junior, seemed like an impediment to my independence. I had carved out my own circle of friends, and it wasn't cool to be trailed by a younger sister. One day, she attempted to join my friend and me in my room. In a fit of pre-adolescent annoyance, I lashed out, urging her to find her own friends. That moment marked a regrettable turning point in our relationship. Eleanor's departure left me feeling overwhelmed with guilt. We later discovered her that evening in a nearby field, taking refuge behind a haystack. Tears streaked her face, and between sobs, she expressed her longing for our mother to be around more. It was then that I truly grasped the extent of our parents' absence. Having a babysitter was our status quo. I had initially believed Eleanor's escape was a direct result of our quarrel, but in reality, it had been the culmination of pent-up emotions. From that day on, Eleanor's behavior became increasingly rebellious. At just 12, she was found sneaking a cigarette behind the school's science block, and by 14, she faced suspension for academic dishonesty. Once the very picture of innocence, the pressures of a nearly parentless existence had undeniably marked her. While I too felt the void, I had perhaps coped differently. Fast forward to the present, and I was beside my younger sister, on the verge of witnessing a child's birth. Questions raced through my mind. How had she arrived at this point, and why was it all kept a secret? How could I, her sister, remain oblivious to her pregnancy? My guilt intensified, pondering how I missed such a glaring sign, contemplating the possibility of being so engrossed in my own life that I failed to see hers unraveling. Really, how does one conceal a pregnancy for so long? Watching Eleanor in that state, her pregnant frame much more evident in this dire moment, I knew I couldn't leave her side. Yet, the urgency to call an ambulance gnawed at me. As I made a move to retrieve my phone, her tearful pleas held me back. Her vulnerability was palpable as she conveyed her fear and yearning for companionship. I tried to reassure her that medical help would arrive shortly, but her distressed cries against it were fervent. Still, the situation demanded professional help. As I rose to call an ambulance, a bone-chilling scream halted me. The gravity of the situation intensified as I realized that the baby was making its entrance. In those surreal moments, I found myself aiding my sister in childbirth. I'll spare you the visceral details, but it's an experience I have no desire to repeat. Amidst the chaos, Toby, our dog, was adding to the cacophony with his incessant barking. As I darted off to finally make the necessary call, an unexpected knock resonated through the silent house. Opening the door, I was met with the stern faces of 2 police officers. My disheveled appearance, bloody hands and a sweat-drenched face must have painted a sinister picture. Though it wasn't my labor, I looked like I'd been through an ordeal. To an outsider, our home might have resembled a crime scene. The officers, upon understanding the situation, quickly dialed for medical assistance. I learned that our neighbors, alarmed by the screams, had reported a potential emergency to the police. Given the circumstances, it was understandable why they'd be relieved upon finding out the true cause of the commotion. But my own relief was still pending. I couldn't decide which would have been preferable, a home intrusion or this unexpected childbirth. Upon reaching the hospital, Eleanor and her newborn were given the necessary care. It was only when I was sitting by her side in the calm of the hospital room that the enormity of what had transpired truly hit me. Eleanor was now a mother, and in my lap of contemplation lay the reality of a new nephew. Our parents' reactions, I mused, would be nothing short of explosive. As day broke, Eleanor mustered the strength to share her story. Her eyes averted mine as she spoke of a secret relationship from a year ago, with a boy from another school. She admitted to dating him partly to rebel against our parents, but pregnancy, she said, was unintentional. Her reluctance to reveal his identity, even under my pressing, only deepened the mystery. She deemed him a grave mistake, sharing he was unaware of her pregnancy. The whole situation felt incredibly overwhelming. Reflecting on the past year, I realized Eleanor had become increasingly aloof. I had attributed her distance to the usual teenage preoccupations, school, friends, and the whirlwind of adolescence. The revelation of her pregnancy was beyond anything I could have fathomed. I broached the topic of her future plans, especially given her age. At 16, it seemed unlikely she'd be discharged without our parents' knowledge. And given their reactions to lesser offenses, I shuddered to think of their response. Yet, Eleanor's next revelation was even more jarring. She had already decided to put the baby up for adoption in hopes of keeping her secret safe. Though I tried to wrap my mind around her decision, it was difficult. Seeing that tiny baby swaddled and peaceful, I couldn't fathom giving him away. But Eleanor seemed resolute, mentioning prearrangements and prospective adoptive families. However, the gravity of the situation became all too real when a nurse entered, notifying Eleanor of her dwindling time with her son. After that, he'd be moved to the nursery, awaiting his new parents. I was stunned by the speed of it all. As the nurse exited, I could see Eleanor wrestling with the weight of her impending decision. The impact was profound and immediate. Eleanor was a cascade of raw emotions, tears pouring out faster than I could comfort her. The depth of her pain was palpable. Holding your own child, that bond forms immediately. An indescribable connection that, once forged, feels impossible to sever. I ached for her. If I could take away her pain, even a fraction of it, I would have. When the medical staff came to take the baby, it was like watching someone rip out a piece of her soul. Her grip on the blanket tightened, and her desolation was evident. The room was filled with her sobs, which seemed to echo endlessly. "I'm so sorry, Claire," she whispered between sobs. "I need him. He's mine. Please help me get him back. I can't bear this emptiness." I couldn't stand by and watch her break. I felt compelled to act. Whatever it took, I was determined to reunite Eleanor with her son.